Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, talking. Are we hearing people? Are we hearing? Are we hearing? Are we hearing? Hi, 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 hi. We're back. Okay, I'm sorry you guys didn't hear that. I had prepared some thoughts, and I guess you didn't get them. Um, so we're here, and I'm sorry about that, everyone. Lux, I would maybe do push to talk because I'm hearing the doggos pretty full on. Not that I don't love to hear Lux constantly, guys, but got a little doggy action. Someone says it's Chance the Rapper says, "We back." Remember when Chance the Rapper was good, and then he got married and had a kid and started hanging out with Kanye, and it was all like, marriage is the best. Jesus is my guy. And then he's divorced, and now he's going to try to rap again. Good to see everyone. This now is officially Wisecrack Live on November 13th on Wednesday the 13th. Yeah, Chris Maverick is like, it's a thing where uh, Chris Maverick hears a frequency no one else can. So he actually heard everything that I said before, and many of you did not. So there we are. So M Porkin says more like Chance the Crapper. Um, okay, so we're here, we're hanging out. Like the stream if you haven't already. You know the drill. You know the effing drill. But yeah, so we are. This is our last show ever because if someone brings up in the chat, the Department of Government Efficiency or Doge has decided that this is not an efficient use of government resources. So, it is what it is. But I guess we're not efficient. Um, but a few things I want to talk about today. We'll talk about the notion of a Joe Rogan on the left. If you are here to defend Joe Rogan, A, I bet he's fine. I bet he's okay. I bet he doesn't need you to defend him. I bet he makes gazillions of dollars and is a little muscle man and is just fine. You know what I mean? I think he's fine. Another thing, if you're here to defend Joe Rogan, we're not here to talk about him, okay? It's the idea of that. The idea of the fact that there was supposedly a right-wing digital media ecosystem that somehow paved the way for the election of Donald Jerome Trump to be the 47th president of the United States of America. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about other stuff later. We're going to hear more from Michael Luxembourg, who obviously is a man with things to say and who needs a platform to say them. So glad to have you here, friends. Let me see. As always, I didn't do this last week because last week was a little intense and it felt weird to do this, but I do want to remind you that we have a coffee partner. They're called Yes Please Coffee. We like them very much. And let me tell you why I say partner and not sponsor. They don't pay us money to tell you their coffee is good, right? Here's what happens. They send me some coffee, which I drink. I drink a lot of it. I've drank more of it recently than I have in a while. Um, then we give you the opportunity to order it with the code Wisecrack for 20% off. When you order it for 20% off, right? They sell the bag of coffee, you get a discount. There's like the tiny profit margin, it's like a few bucks, and then we split that with them. So when you get coffee from Yes Please and use code Wisecrack, you're basically giving us like $1.74. So that's cool. We'll take it. We'll take it. You get a discount and we get a little kickback. Um, but they're our partner again as well because we really like them. We really like them. Someone caught the Giz shirt. Thank you, Stereo Moon. Someone caught it. Um, but yeah, I'll just say again, like I really fuck with coffee a lot. I like it a lot, and it's one of the best coffee I've had in my entire life. So do check out Yes Please Coffee. Use code Wisecrack. There's a link down in the description. So there you go. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Um, so guys, I hope everyone's doing okay. Hope everyone's feeling well. Thanks for hanging out last week. Last week we had our biggest stream ever, because people post election were sort of like, what the fuck? So thank you for hanging out for that. We also had a video that came out on Friday that nobody watched, and that's fine. They don't all have to be winners. But it's on aging, and I recommend if you didn't check it out. I know that it was a depressing week last week, and I know some people reached out to us to basically be like, "Hey guys, this week sucks ass." So, okay, so Rye Riv says, "Cheers, no, the left needs a John Stewart." I think that's a legitimate question, so we're going to talk about it. Yeah, it would be great if we had 666 today, though. But the videos on aging in America and how we kind of don't have the infrastructure for people getting old, and how, in particular, our government that's run by old people has created the conditions for old people to wither and die, and then they've created conditions by which we're going to have to take care of these old parents with the money that we don't have. It's a fun one. It's a fun one. So check that out if you haven't. Let me tell you about the video coming out Friday. Coming out Thursday, which is tomorrow for our patrons, we did a video on Jubilee videos. Guys, this is another one. I say this semi regularly now, and I really mean it. Um, a video that we made together, because we've done some Jubilee video stuff on the stream. We had our friend Naima from the Jubilee videos come on the stream and hang out with us. And it inspired us to make a video on Jubilee videos. And that's coming out on Friday. I think you'll like it. I'm very confident in that. Okay. Um, so I'm trying to think if there's any other announcements I want to give y'all. Basically that. And also, if you haven't checked it out yet, Wisecrack 2 is up. We have our first video up. A lot of people have watched it, so thank you so much for doing that. It's on the movie The Menu, which is French for Le Menu. Um, I mean, it's insane. I'll be really honest with you guys. Our goal for the second channel was that between the first two videos we posted, we would get 100,000 views. And we have almost 250,000 on that first video. So even if we got negative 150,000 views on the second one, we're still good. And I'll tell you guys, because I care about you, what's coming next. Next, you have a video coming out about the movie Cars. Yeah, that one. Lightning McQueen, ever heard of him? Uh, and then we have a video about the movie The Substance, which is French for Les Substances. And those will be coming out in the second channel as well. So thanks for checking it out if you haven't already. Okay, so let's get into this question of the the online campaign and the online ecosystem. So we'll start by talking about how supposedly, allegedly, according to some, um, the online ecosystem helped win the presidency for Monsieur Trump, which is French for President Trump. Um, that's a real thing. Hopefully that sunk in for everyone. Hopefully it just sunk in for everyone that's where we're at as a country, as a culture. This is just where we're at. You know, so that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Our friend Neil from Leftist Cooks, who wrote a video for us a couple weeks ago, suggested yesterday to me on the internet that I should look into just moving to Ireland, and it doesn't sound bad, guys. It doesn't sound bad. So, Lux, let's start with the Wired article. Guys, this is a piece from McKenna Kelly. It came out last week. It's a shorter one. It has a scary picture in the front where Barron Trump is on the left, and he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Barron's too big of a boy. I don't like that about him. He's too big of a boy. Also, what's weird about the Trump kids is like it's not cool to think like I don't know, maybe if you have a cool parent, but I just think if you're a teenager or like a freshman in college, it's not cool to like think your dad's cool and want to hang out with your dad and all your older step siblings. Like it's not cool to want to hang out with JD Vance. Like why can't you be rebellious? Like George Bush's kids, like Jenna Bush and the other Bush, all the Bushes, they were like party girl train wrecks. And that's what you should do if you're the kid of a president. The Obama girls, they just like troll around LA fucking huffing cigs and making short films. You know what I mean? Like be weird. Get out there. Be a little bit problematic if you're going to be a president, kids. Hunter Biden, never heard of him? He's doing it right. Is my main point. And I think that Barron Barron just needs to be a little more reckless. Okay, awesome. What's up, Drift King 305? Okay, so let me go down. Is it cool if I start kind of just scrolling through the article? Or do you want me to hold off for a sec? Happy either way. Okay, I can't hear you, so I'm going to assume I can start talking about it. Okay, so it's from the Wired article. It starts by, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll kind of bounce around. It says President-elect Donald Trump finishes victory speech early Wednesday morning to give the floor to Dana White. Dana White, my future boss. And he thanked the Nelk boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, bussin' with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. For those of you who don't know who these people are, they're all various online figures. And you know, some of them are like more overtly political than others, like Aiden Ross, pretty bad guy. Theo Vaughn, I don't know what the read on Theo Vaughn is, right? Like sometimes he seems dumb but good natured. Other times he just does anti-Semitism. Like he was on, I think he was on Rogan this week, and he made some comment that was sort of like the Jews control blank. It felt bad. Probably not the best thing. Probably not the best thing to say. He did briefly win me over because he interviewed Bernie Sanders while wearing a Grateful Dead shirt and agreed with what Bernie was saying. But he also seems like one of those dumb guys who will just be like, "Yeah, totally, man." And of course, Joe Rogan. This is over the final stretch of the 2024 campaign cycle. Trump went on a grand tour of podcast interviews, appearing alongside these popular influencers, streamers, and podcast hosts, and more importantly, in front of their predominantly young male audience. And it's been said that tall boy Barron was one of the influences for this. Like Barron was like, "Hey Dad, these are my favorite shows. Dad, these are my favorite podcast and streaming shows. Dad, will you go on the show? Dad. Um, so Barron made him do that. And, you know, the reason this was a little bit out of pocket relative to the traditional presidential media cycle is that normally the big boys and girls who are running for president, they go on the news shows, the cable shows, the Sunday morning shows, all that sort of stuff. So it seemed to some people in the more conventional political establishment, like, this is silly. Why would you go on these silly little podcasts? Why would you go on these silly streams? Who cares about this? Turns out lots of people, because it seems like people don't, I think a lot of older folks, and I say this as a increasingly old folk, still don't understand that a majority, a good chunk of media consumed by people, especially younger people these days, is consumed on the computer, you know, on the phone, on streaming devices and things like that. There's a quote here. It says the corporate media, a lot of the mainstream media, don't know how to talk to men anymore. I think that's a big issue, says Alex Brushewitz, a Trump campaign advisor. The messaging that comes out through the mainstream media doesn't resonate well with the average American man. And so a lot of them find their news through less traditional means. We'll return to this theme today, guys. We have a few themes we're going to weave in and out of. But along with the, you know, podcast and YouTube shows and streams won the election thing is the narrative that it is primarily because these things appeal to men, because men need their media. You know, if you're singing the theme song for 2.5 Men in your head now, you are not alone. You know, the one's like, man. What a stupid show. But shout out to you if you really like 2.5 Men, if that's like a big part of your thing. Someone said, Wisecrack, your subscriber base are children. I don't think so, but there you go. There you go. And again, if you're here to be like, don't talk about Joe Rogan, that's my best friend. We're not talking shit about him, guys. We're talking about structures here. Sean Harriman said Theo Von interviewed Gabor Mate. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean yeah. But we'll get into this. We'll get into this. But I think a thing that some folks are missing is that a lot of the people who are seemingly influential in these like quote unquote right wing spaces are not political figures. I'll hint at what I want to talk about later, and I know that Lux has thoughts on this, so I definitely in the back half of the show want to bring him on and let him cook, even if he says that everything I said was wrong. I believe in freedom of speech, but like the idea that what we need to counter this is just for like there to be more Chapo trap houses, I think is missing the point quite aggressively. Um, but yeah, let's see. I'm just okay. So this article says, yeah, for 4 years, political groups and campaigns have invested significant time and funds in building out vast networks of influencers, and that was a big thing. The Biden campaign did. They worked with influencers. They did not ask us to support them. After Harris became the nominee, her campaign was flooded with donations. They raised $1 billion, guys. $1 billion. And it went well. I mean, this is a baby brain take, and you can tell me why this is a baby brain take in the chat because I'm acknowledging that this is a baby brain take. But like, we could do better stuff with $1 billion. Like, what if what if they just would have not ran and just used that $1 billion? I don't know, build affordable housing, pay off medical debt and student loan debt. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You know, we act like there's no money in the banana stand, right? We can't afford anything. People can't have nice things. But then there's just enough money to waste $1 billion on a losing campaign. I don't know, guys. I have a baby brain. This is a channel for children. Um, so to make up the difference, the Trump campaign flooded the zone with influencer content that cost a fraction of what traditional advertising would do. So you have two strategies, right? The one campaign is like, we're going to spend $1 billion on Facebook ads. We're going to pay almost $500,000 a day to have it say Harris Walls on the outside of the Sphere, which is French for Le Sphere. Um, and we're going to do that. And the other campaign is like, we're going to go on podcasts. Pretty cheap. Pretty cheap to do that. I don't know how much it costs to go on Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan. I imagine it costs less than lighting up the Sphere in Las Vegas. All right. So it says, so while Trump dominated conservative news outlets, his influencer operation was nearly non-existent. Non-existent, not non-existent. But they made up for it getting involved in creators that say exist in the manosphere. I've never been invited to the manosphere. Never got an email that said, here's your unique digital code to enter the manosphere. Never gotten to a web page that says, click the images that feature stairs so we know you're a real man so you can get in the manosphere. What actually happened is I got a CAPTCHA thing and it said, click all the bottles that feature Pinot Grigio. And I was like, oh, I can do that. So I clicked all the bottles of Pinot Grigio and they were like, we got you. A real man would have gotten that wrong. So, my vinocultural interests got me kicked out of the manosphere before I could even get in. It says other Trump-aligned influencers who attended these events spread conspiracy theories about Harris, immigration, election fraud, and more. Trump loved it. He shared the post. CJ Pearson, co-chair of the RNC's Youth Advisory Council. I think that's one of the guys that does the Prager University thing. Great guy. He says when we live in such a time as this, when there is such record distrust in the traditional media, people trust people, and influencers are people. It's wild to have those like Socrates who walk among us. They look to influencers to tell them what to be passionate about, what to be enraged about, what to be activated about. And then that's exactly what we wanted to do throughout this campaign. They note that on the ground, the Trump campaign wasn't good at knocking on doors and stuff because their big door knocking thing was that Elon Musk shoved people in the back of U-Haul vans and paid them in Dogecoin to knock on doors or something. But it seems like it didn't matter. Seems like it didn't matter. There's a quote here from Hassan Piker, who is supposedly a popular leftist Twitch streamer. I don't know what any of those words mean. Says it wasn't only Trump's willingness to appear on these podcasts, but also what he represented to the audiences. He says, some of these guys are my friends. Others not so much, says Piker. The podcasts themselves are not exactly what caused Trump to gain momentum or popularity. They played a role for sure in outreach. But overall, I think that he had a message that resonated with those guys. And the podcast was simply a vehicle to get to those guys. And there's a Republican digital strategist named Eric Wilson who told Wired that these campaigns are less effective at persuading audiences on issues than they are rallying audiences to vote. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that was a big part of it. This article's almost done. The next challenge, according to Wilson, is implementing influencer marketing in localized races. The last quote in the article says, "You can't put a dollar amount on the earned media value that we got through our podcast and influencer meetups." Jake Paul, whoever it may be, guys, we live in a world where Jake Paul exists. Like we live in a world where I have to drive to here, and there's just like billboards of Jake Paul. Who's the I just yeah. Also, let's talk about this for a second. I was thinking about this yesterday. Okay, yesterday I was driving back from this studio to go back to my home, and I was stuck at a red light as I often am. And there was the Jake Paul posters for some brand, and there was a billboard for the Netflix fight. And my thought was like, has boxing gone the way of America? Because this is gonna shock you guys. This is gonna shock everyone who's like, I'm gonna watch this dumb liberal cuck. Oh, he missed 666. Shit! Shit! Damn it! Welcome to 666, guys. Thank you for being here. I'm so sorry that I missed it. I'm so sorry that I missed it. Um, Ann Porkins is right. I do feel silly. Thanks in the chat for celebrating it. I love you guys and I care about you. I'm sorry that I missed it. But here's my point about boxing. This is going to shock you guys. I've historically liked boxing. It's going to shock you even more. For a couple summers, some of you are going to poop your penises when I say this. I actually did boxing training for a bit. And the reason I did it is going to shock you even more. You guys are about to just pee your butts. One of the foremost Kierkegaard scholars in America, and the person who was the curator of the only Kierkegaard research library in America, my guy Gordon Marino, along with being a scholar and academic of Kierkegaard and existential philosophy and psychology, is a badass boxer and boxing trainer from Jersey. So I was at these summer fellowships doing nerd stuff, and then the professor guy was like, any of you geeks want to learn to box? And I think he almost did it in a way that was sort of like, these geeks can't handle the business. And I'm pretty sure it was like me and a Dutch woman who were like, let's go. Um, so I did boxing training, and then this is gonna weave back into the Paul story, because guys, I'm good at this. This is what I'm good at, weaving things together. But then this boxing coach and academic, Gordon Marino, guess who he became friends with? Mike Tyson. He became a sort of existential spiritual advisor for Mike Tyson. There's some interviews out there from a certain period where Mike Tyson quotes Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. Why does he quote Soren Kierkegaard? Because my guy Gordon Marino was reading Kierkegaard with Mike Tyson. Weird world. Mike Tyson fighting Paul. I know that one of my friends, my best friend in the world, is watching the stream because I just got a text that said the Irish love boxing. I think that's another part of it too. But gets us back to Mr. Paul, who's fighting Mike Tyson. Here's my thought here, guys. Boxing used to be good and cool. It was like a real sport. MMA started to ruin that in many ways. MMA obviously relates to some of the stuff we're talking about today. But like, and once I say the thing I want to say, I'm curious. I'm gonna ask Lux what he thinks in a second. Why does anyone care if Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, I don't care which one it is, the boxing Paul, why is it cool that he's fighting like a sad old man, Mike Tyson, who clearly is just doing this to get money? And when he wins, who cares? That's like saying I'm gonna do an analogy here. That's like saying if fucking Anthony Edwards, basketball player, beat David Robinson, older basketball player, in a one-on-one game. They're like, David Robinson sucks and Anthony Edwards rules. No, David Robinson's 60 years old. Of course he would lose. We would need time travel technology to take both athletes at the peak of their thing and put them together and then do it, right? So if you're going to do the whole Paul guy fighting Tyson, get the DeLorean, put the trash in the DeLorean, drive Mr. Paul back to like 1993, and then see what happens. I know what would happen. He'd get his shit rocked. Lux, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why. Tell me how this is anything other than just the stupidest thing ever that they're doing the boxing thing. Oh, oh. Can you can you guys hear Lux when he talks? I know it's always there's that delay in the chat. Well, we'll assume they can. I think they can. I think they can. Someone says Bill fucking Simmons. Bill Simmons is the Rogan for the left. Yeah, Lux is muted. Lux is muted. No one can hear you, Lux. Okay, I'll tell you. Lux, yeah, Lux. I'll tell you guys what Lux said. He did agree with me, and said that it's stupid, and this is all
Okay.
a stupid thing. I think he said it's profoundly stupid or something like
Okay, I
that.
think y'all
And
can
like it
should be
does
able to
me. The
hear me
boxing thing makes me
now.
think of America, and that boxing used to be a serious sport where serious athletes competed. But then people got more into MMA. Why are they more into MMA? And there's people I know and like who really enjoy MMA. So I'm not trying to shit on it, but like it's more visceral, it's gnarlier, it's all that sort of stuff. And America just wants to see fucking blood. And the fact that boxing, a sport that's been around for hundreds of years, is now reduced to a Netflix special where some psychopath is fighting a fucking 60-year-old. I don't know what Mike Tyson is. He has to be 60 or something like that. Um, wait, so we can hear Lux now, but he's
Okay,
loud.
I'm back. I should be okay
Okay.
now. So here's the thing that I'll say to you about this, which is I tend to think that A, it's all kayfabe money make stuff.
Yeah.
B, uh, I think that they have a sort of that like there's a part of me that really just thinks Mike Tyson wants to beat the shit out of Jake Paul, and I think he
Yeah.
will. Like I really think that Mike Tyson will kill Jake Paul, and I think it'll be awesome. And so that's sort of what I'm looking forward to with all of this. I'm not sure about any of the other stuff. I mean, like it's obviously a money grab. Part of me thinks Jake Paul really thinks he could beat an old Mike Tyson, but it really does also feel a lot like, um, whoa, who were the Wisecrack account is going
Oh, I
wild in
did.
there.
Oh, I just spammed a link. Guys, and this is a fun deep cut too. This is a link to Alec Opperman's pseudonymous old website. Oops, I snitched, where he wrote as Eugene Walters, his website criticaltheory.com, in which he has a post about Mike Tyson who loves Kierkegaard.
Yeah, and
Um,
also Mike Tyson loves pigeons, and I think that like Jake Paul thinks he's going to prove something with this, but it really is just a win. It's like the lose lose for him. Either he beats up an old man because Mike Tyson doesn't have the juice anymore, or Mike Tyson has even a small amount of the juice he once had, in which case he'll kill Jake Paul to death.
I hope he does. That would be cool. Um, if he did. Also, someone said something in the chat about me shaming people's interest. I'm not shaming anyone's interest. If you like MMA, boxing, whatever, like that's cool. Like truly, I don't really care. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, this is a quote, guys, and this is what I'm reading right now is literally a quote from Mike Tyson. It says, I'm currently reading The Quotable Kierkegaard, edited by Gordon Marino, a collection of awesome quotes from that great Danish philosopher. He wanted his epitaph to read, and yet a little while I shall have won, then the whole fight will all at once be done. I love reading philosophy, says Mike Tyson. Most philosophers are so politically incorrect, challenging the status quo, even challenging God. Nietzsche's my favorite. He's just insane. You have to have an IQ of at least 300 to truly understand him. Apart from philosophy, I'm always reading about history. So, I'll just say if in that when that fight happens, if you want to root for the person who's read a book or philosophy, you're going Tyson, not Logan in that. So, but all that to say was no Tyson impression. Here's the line, guys. I'm not gonna do impressions that could veer into accidental racism territory. That's the line. I just gotta say it. I gotta say it. That's the line. I'm not gonna do because I could do the lisp, and in my mind, it would be like, oh, I'm just doing the Mike Tyson lisp. But there's a world where it comes across is not great. And I know we're in Trump's America now, so that like we don't have to worry about getting canceled for being politically incorrect and we can do whatever we want. But still want to be careful here. So all I have to say is, these are some of the cultural figures who are influencing I guess presidential politics or voter turnout. I do think that Wired article hit something important, which is that it seems to be more a correlation between getting people to vote in the first place and not that people are coming to Theo Vaughn or Logan Paul or whoever for the sake of hearing about policy positions. I do think I'm not going to say this would have made a massive difference in the election. I do think it would have not hurt if Kamala Harris would have gone on more podcasts. She went on what? She went on All the Smoke, the basketball podcast.
She went on Call Her Daddy.
She went on Call Her Daddy, and then she also did it's not a podcast, it's right, but she went on Charlemagne as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think she should, like, honestly, she should have gone on. Someone said this in the chat earlier, and you guys, someone made a joke about this person. I think she absolutely should have done the Bill Simmons podcast. 1,000,000,000%. Um, because Bill Simmons is in a weird thing where, like, people who are right leaning and like Rogan and shit like that listen to Bill Simmons, and then lots of like liberal, vaguely lefty elites with guilt in their hearts also listen to Bill Simmons. That would have been my advice.
Yeah, but
Obviously, Wisecrack
Simmons
Live.
people vote.
They do vote. They 100% vote. I think their voting propensity is high, but
It's not you're not juicing turnout by going on the Simmons
that's a good
pod.
point. Yeah. And then we learned, sadly, that Wisecrack Live doesn't have the bump. We had Marianne Williamson, and it didn't go great for her campaign. It didn't go great. Sean says she got her 15 minutes with Kat Abu. I know. Guys, if we get to 777, I'm going to get really Christian. So get ready. Get ready. So let's check out this Vanity Fair article, which is another more recent take kind of on this phenomenon. The title of this one is, Can Democrats Compete with the Rogan Verse? It says, as podcasters and YouTubers help deliver the bro vote to Donald Trump, Democrats are facing criticism for not engaging enough with non-traditional media on the right or elevating voices on the left. And before we get into this, I'll say one thing. I'm dropping some breadcrumbs here. We'll put it all together later because we're in basket weaving class right now. A thing that we shall talk about is that there's more money in the right-wing banana stand. This is a thing we know. More Wall Street buddies are right-leaning. The Peter Thiels of this universe are very right-leaning. There is simply more money and investment backing to be put into right-wing figures. And I wouldn't even say purely right-wing figures because, again, Joe Rogan isn't an overtly, and maybe some will get mad that I say this, political person. He talks to political figures, but he also talks to whoever. And because of that, Netflix will give him $1 bazillion, or not Netflix, Spotify. There's just less, because for example, like this article and their little picture, they have Hassan Piker in it. I'll tell you why Spotify wouldn't pay Hassan Piker $300 million. Because people that work at Spotify, people that are investors in the company, would be sent clips of him saying things that are directly critical of capital, American empire, the Zionist project, all these sorts of things, and they wouldn't be happy about that. They just wouldn't be happy about that. As much as we might think that the Hollywood industrial complex, I always point that way when I say it because that's where it is from where I'm sitting right now. Hollywood is a place where people that we know, I'm not going to name names, but I would say friends of the show even have like lost their talent managers because they posted some like free Palestine stuff online. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's not as much money in the banana stand. And that's the thing we have to think about right off the bat, that all of these media ecosystems don't exist from nothing. They are not created ex nihilo, which is French for from nothing. They exist because of money and investment and financial infrastructure. And obviously someone like Rogan and a lot of other podcasts exist because of the Spotify infrastructure. We know that like the Barstool universe took $1 bazillion from sports betting, and these things help them get money. So, but we'll touch on that again in a sec. And again, if you're tuning, we hit 777. Okay, let's do a prayer together, guys. Okay, everyone to bow their heads, close their eyes. Okay, we want to say, "Dear God, if you exist, why? Why? God, because if you do exist and you do have consciousness, one of two things is true. You know things that we don't know, and this narrative is heading someplace that makes sense, and the Messiah will eventually retroactively redeem all that has come before," shouts to Walter Benjamin. Or you're a bad guy. Which one is it, God? We humbly ask this in your name. Whatever your name is, I assume your name's not God. God seems like it's more of an ontological signifier. I assume you have a different name that you use, but we say this in your name. I'm going to say amen, but however we close prayer in your chosen faith, please say it. But again, why? Okay, speaking of God, too, guys, the conclave, what a picture. What a picture. If you have not seen the movie Conclave yet, guys, please do. It's so good. Okay, so the Vanity Fair article opens with the similar quote from UFC CEO Dana White, where he thanked the fellas. It says White's remarks spoke to the Trump campaign's savvy media strategy of courting large male audiences. It's funny that they say large male audiences, but I was gonna do a height thing, guys, and you know what? I'm above that. And was a harbinger of the Democrats in a Joe Rogan discourse that was followed the party's resounding defeat. In conversations I've since had with prominent voices on the right and left, as well as with journalists steeped in internet culture, clear that the Democrats need to engage more effectively through non-traditional media. And while there are opportunities for the party to connect, there's also no quick fix to match a right-leaning, male-centric media ecosystem or manosphere that's growing into a mega megaphone. Mega megaphone. Okay. The shift's been happening for literal years, says Taylor Lorenz. Guys, Taylor Lorenz is someone who, every now and then says or does something online that seems interesting. She drops an interesting story, gets at something, but then just does like the goofiest, weirdest stuff. That's all I'm going to say. You can look at the evolution of something like Barstool Sports, which is part of this as well. The right has always succeeded in personality-driven environments. They recognized back in the 90s, in the days of talk radio, that personality-driven media is far more effective at reaching people and promoting their messaging. She also points to the sports, gaming, and YouTube prank culture as subtle ways that young people were gradually exposed to increasingly conservative ideology. You know why prank culture didn't make people like Lux and myself conservatives? Because we had Jackass, guys. All of the YouTube pranksters are terrible. Send me. I want you guys to prove me wrong. Share a link. Write us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Again, wisecracklive666@gmail.com. I will check emails later in the show. Like, are there any contemporary prankers that are good that aren't like mean? And then their like meanness in their pranks affects their political ideology, even past Jackass. Like, Eric Andre, great pranker, good politics. I mean, Jerky Boys are like back in the day though, Eddie. Also, Eddie, shout out to, it seems like I don't want to like dox you, Eddie, but it seems like you're doing stuff at a very prestigious university these days. So good for you, bud. What's up, Mellow Jello? Good to see you. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying like everyone in the Jackass crew wants to facilitate a workers' revolution, but I just don't think they would be like, right-wing figures, except for Bam. Bam probably would be, and that's why he's not allowed to talk. Let's get back to this article. It says, oh yes, we have the Taylor Lorenz quote going down. It says, Lorenz, who produces an online culture publication on Substack, User Mag. Oh yeah, didn't she get fired from the Washington Post for like doxing someone? I forget exactly. Says the content space leans right because the people who created the environment have always felt shut out from traditional media channels, Hollywood, and mainstream pop culture, which they feel is controlled by liberals. I find this funny. I'll tell you why I find it funny. A lot of the people who do control, run, and host mainstream media channels are pretty right-leaning, guys. Like, I guess I think when they say liberal, what makes Hollywood liberal is like that people in movies can be gay now. And I'm not trying to be silly or reductive here, guys, but that's kind of it. I'm listening to the book by Mark Harris, Pictures at a Revolution. It's his account of like the emergence of like 1960s and 70s American cinema. And there's a part early on about Sidney Poitier, the first black man who won a best actor's Oscar. And Poitier said something like, that the thing that sucked about winning it was that it allowed Hollywood to be like, hey, we're progressive because we gave a black guy an award when he was like, no, the entire industry is predicated on racism. Like they didn't even let black people work on film sets and in film crews. I mean, of course, this is coming out of an era where most of Hollywood just snitched on communists left and right. So the whole notion that like Hollywood is somehow liberal, nah, there's periods in which the artists who work in Hollywood, artists who tend to be connected to other humans via the desire for storytelling and empathy, become left-leaning figures. But most of the like historic left-leaning Hollywood figures, writers and actors, get kind of ostracized, you know, because you gotta kiss the ring of the king sometimes to stay in good stead. So I don't know. I kind of just don't buy that, especially when like the most watched news program or news network is Fox, or at least it was until recently. In the final stretch of the 2024 election, the article goes on. Trump appeared on numerous podcasts and live streams. Joe Rogan Experience this past weekend with Theo Vaughn, Full Send, and more. Um, Vance also appeared on Rogan's show, as did Elon Musk, who convinced the podcast to give an 11th hour endorsement. Trump's 18-year-old son, Barron, the least cool 18-year-old, has been credited with encouraging such appearances. I guess it's cool though that his dad listens to him. Because I'll be honest, guys, and let me know what you think. I don't think my dad, like when I was 18, I think if I told my dad, like, hey dad, there's this band like Blood Brothers you should check out, or hey dad, there's this DJ Danger Mouse, and he did this cool thing where he took Jay-Z's The Black Album and the Beatles' The White Album and made a thing called The Gray Album. You should really listen to this. Hey dad, there's a band called the Postal Service. They're called that because Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie sent tapes between Jimmy Tamborello, this like electronic producer, and because they went back and forth in the mail, they called it the Postal Service. And it's this really interesting like mixture of sort of like lo-fi electronic dance music with all the heartfelt lyricism of modern emo. Like if I said that stuff to my dad, I don't think he would have listened to that stuff. You know, if I was like, hey dad, do you want to come see the Royal Tenenbaums with me? At first you think it's funny, but then it's about like loss, suicide, and despair. Uh-uh. You know? So shouts to Trump. You know, this is earnest. Shouts to Trump for listening to his son. Let me know in the chat if your dad ever did something cool because you told him to. I know someone who has a cool dad. His name's Lux, and I know I can ask this question, and I know that he'll have an answer. Lux, what's like the coolest thing you ever recommended to your dad that he checked out?
Um, I got him to read China Mieville's
Whoa!
best log novels recently.
Whoa!
That was a pretty good one. I also got him to watch a couple of Takashi Miike movies before he was like, "No, dude."
Okay, guys, this is good. This is good. I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Rabbi Lux loves new things.
Shouts to Rabbi Luck.
Even if he ends up, or like likes trying new things, even if he ends up not being super into them. He did not. He liked Ichi the Killer, but then I showed him Audition, and he was not into it.
Wow. That's amazing. And I'm glad. I would have felt really dumb if I would have asked that, and that would have not been the answer. So article goes on to quote, friend of the show. I know this is a person a lot of you like a lot. A lot of you, this is one of your favorite people. Conservative host Candace Owens tells me the public was able to access a different side of Trump, and that's what people want to see. Owen says that 90% of mainstream media is basically dismissing people on the right. I mean, here's the thing that I believe is true. And this is a reference to my dad. You can't be mean to my dad because he's dead. Actually, maybe you can because dead men tell no tales. But, you know, my dad was of that generation that would say things like, you just want to vote for the guy that you'd have a beer with. And I think there's a lot of people like that. I remember before Walz was picked as the VP nominee, I was in Minnesota with some family. And that's like the reason everyone in Minnesota loves Tim Walz is because that's what they see. A guy that you could like get a beer with, talk about the Vikings with, go fishing with. And a lot of people are attracted to the idea that their political leader is someone like that. Now, you might say something like, well, was that Obama? Obama was weird because I think some people wanted to get a beer with Obama, and for other people, there's like an aspirational coolness about Obama. And I think people also like cool people. Bill Clinton had a similar vibe. You know, Bill Clinton, bad guy. Let's be clear, bad guy. But he like played saxophone on Arsenio Hall. He kind of like talked that shit. He joked about smoking pot. People were like, oh, you could kick it with this guy. And again, George Bush, George W., the guy that did the thing in September of 2001. People thought George Bush was a guy like, it might not be perfect, but you could sit down and have a beer with him. Someone said the volume gained some juice. Guys, I can be quiet if you want. Is it better if I do this? Should we just ASMR this bitch and see what happens?
People were saying that it was too quiet, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
still bouncing because I can't have the monitor on, because
Sorry.
otherwise I get
I keep
echo.
moving away from the mic. Yeah. Audio is on athletic greens. That might be the comment, the chat message of the day so far, Lennon McDonald's. But I do think that's a part of this, that you have to have people that people want to hang with. I'll go on a side quest and say this thing right now. And again, we're going to weave it all together. Like, I think that a thing people are missing in this discussion, and I kind of said this before, is again, like, the reason a lot of people listen to Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and others in that space is not because they quote unquote like their politics. It's not that they quote unquote go to them to be ideologically informed. They like hanging out with them. They are a fun parasocial hang. And that parasociality builds a sense of trust. It almost builds a world. And because of that, when those figures who have built parasocial bonds with an audience do bring in politics or political figures, the audience is sort of lubed up to be into what those people have to say, which is why when Bernie Sanders went on Rogan 4 years ago and Theo Vaughn recently, I don't think the audience reaction to those interviews was like, fuck this guy. Fuck this, he's a Jewish liberal socialist from Vermont. No, they were like, oh, my guy Theo's talking to him. He might be cool. And then he said stuff and people were like, oh, that is right. Same reason why after Bernie went on Rogan, like a lot of people in that audience, they weren't mad about it. They were into it. The people that were mad that Bernie went on Rogan are people who have never watched or listened to Joe Rogan, right? People that were mad when Bernie went on Theo Vaughn, in general, are people who like weren't really aware of what that guy, you know, does. So I think that's a part of it, right? There's a level of parasociality, and I think so. I think in this discussion, a lot of the last couple weeks, like people have said, oh, Hassan and Chapo Trap House and other people should build out a media empire. But that's like not what people want, guys. People don't want a bigger ecosystem online of dudes yelling about politics all the time. They do want shows and networks and streams and all that sort of stuff with people who they find to be good hangs. And I'm going to be reductive here and I'll be an old millennial for a second, but there is a reason that a lot of, let's say, sports media, people who I know people who are very far left, and I know people who are very traditionally conservative that listen to the same baseball and basketball podcast, that watch the same shows. There's people who are card carrying communists who watch Inside the NBA and love watching, Chuck and Kenny fight. And there's people that are, 10-year NRA members who love watching Inside the NBA. There's a sense in which there's these media spaces that at least offer some form of like unifying cultural overlap. It's why you often hear people use, we said like have a beer before. You hear people reference sometimes like, oh man, I met someone at a bar and they were actually really different than me ideologically, but we were able to shoot the shit and kind of talk because yeah, you're in a shared cultural space, the space of the bar or whatever it might be. And I don't know, I kind of think that's what we need more than we need some media network that's like, CNN, but for communism or something. We need people that, I mean, again, and I think this is why, and again, I'm gonna later in the show, Lux is gonna come on full time and talk about this stuff with us. But I think like, I don't think that the left needs Joe Rogan. It's almost like they need like I guess more like a Bill Simmons type. I don't know. People that are just more like people, like we need people that have really good streams and podcast about sports, but they're also people that have like interesting political takes and operate with empathy and will bring people on to talk about stuff, right? Like, if there was a podcast or a stream or whatever that was about sports, and Tim Walz went on and mostly just shot the shit about the Vikings. I think that would be really useful in terms of the same stuff they're talking about here. But we'll keep reading. We'll talk about this later. It says, meanwhile, Kamala Harris's campaign missed out on that. She's a much more vibrant young person than Trump politics is. So, oh, sorry, I skipped the part where it was Don Lemon saying stuff. Don Lemon. But it's like very funny. I'm gonna just one of my best friend is texting me with his thoughts on this. He's too good to get in the chat, but he did bring up the point that Obama did Beergate with the officer after Professor Gates was arrested on his own porch. That was a weird one. That was a weird time in American history. Or like the beer summit. But Lennon says Kamala is a more vibrant young person because only in politics is a 60-year-old vibrant and young. She's not a sourpuss, and those people wanted to embrace her. There's so many places, sort of center or center left, who are just not in that crazy right-wing white boy bro space that she could have gone on to. Lemon suggests that the Harris campaign was too cautious, concerned by which podcast host could cause unwanted controversy. Here's the thing, too. The people that would get mad at Kamala Harris for going on Joe Rogan are going to vote for Kamala Harris anyways. You know what I'm saying? But it's what's done is done. Next paragraph says, one voice on the left to achieve similar success in audience is, again, I've never heard of this person, Hassan Piker, a streamer, influencer, and political talker. That's funny. Who provides an alternative to hyper-masculine Trump boosters while remaining culturally relevant. On election night, Piker was the only left-leaning streamer to rank in the top 10 on Twitch. I'm curious what people think about this in the chat. Someone said, I just see FD Signifier would be great for the Gen X crowd. Yeah, FD Signifier is great. Let's see. Just kind of catching up with the chat, guys. Love to see y'all here. Over someone's from Bill Moore. Okay, cool. Yeah, Ann Porkins. I'll definitely be the Joe Rogan of the left. I've seen people bring Adam Conover. I'll say it. I think Adam Conover is a little too like smarmy. Thunderbird, thank you for bringing up King Gizzard. But yeah, I don't know. I find Conover a little bit smarmy. If that might not be the right way to put it, but I just think like this is gonna be a little bit whatever. But I don't know. Like beer bros, I don't think are ever gonna like Adam Conover because of his smarminess. So there you go. Shout out to people that hate Playboy Cardi. Let's see. And yeah, Maverick says in the chat, Christopher Maverick, he says, what makes it work to the immediacy of forum? Piker isn't doing the same thing as Rogan, and he shouldn't. Agreed. So the other streams that did well on election night were Dan Bongino. Bongina? I don't know. Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson. Just a who's who of people who I'm not going to say the joke I was going to say. Guys, I just showed self-restraint, and that's a lesson for all of us. It says Piker in an interview identifies different strands of commentary on the right from the more explicitly political propaganda outlets like the Daily Wire, the centrist content circuit, Theo Vaughn. Because Vaughn is not an overt right-winger. Rogan falls somewhere in between. Notably, Sanders appeared on Rogan's show during the 2020 campaign. Let's see. Okay, just scrolling down a little bit. Yeah, so they're basically talking about how the backlash that Bernie Sanders got for going on Rogan made the Democratic Party less likely to do that. I think I remember correctly that even like AOC got mad at Bernie for going on Rogan. So, there you go. Someone said Adam Friedland's going to be the Rogan of this. Did everyone see the Adam Friedland tweet about Destiny yesterday? I'm going to say nothing else than that, but I'm going to say Adam Friedland had a tweet about Destiny, which I thought was a tweet that existed. If we get to 888, what do we do, guys? I forget. I see we're getting close. Was 888 push-ups or something at one point? I forget. If someone wants to tell me what I do at 888, I'll do it if we get there. I'm going to go back to the article. So yeah, it's talking about the backlash Sanders thing. We're talking about Piker again. And then Lauren says they're building culture shows, they're not building political shows. Yeah, so I think this is the point I was trying to make earlier. I think the notion that there needs to be this vast ecosystem of leftists talking about leftist stuff is missing the point. I think that building out cultural spaces that are maybe like passively undergirded by that. Because think of it this way, I would not like to listen to a musician whose songs were just their political ideologies. Maybe you would, I wouldn't. But shouts to Rage Against the Machine, I guess. But I like knowing that musicians I like have, let's say, good politics or seem to have a good ethos as a human. I'll give one random example, like Bon Iver, Justin Vernon, right? Uh, Bon Iver makes cool music. It's very good and intricate and well made. And the songs seem mostly like introspective. They're not really about stuff. But Justin Vernon, as a person, seems to be a really good guy and seems to have really good politics and has supported good causes. And I like that. You know, I could think of more examples, but I won't. But I think that's kind of what we need more of, like cultural commentators and figures that aren't necessarily alienating off the rip. Because again, you could listen to Justin Vernon if you were a big like I'm with her head or something, and I don't think it would alienate you. Yeah, Lauren says it is subtly political. It's just not like shoving it down your throat and you're not aware you're consuming it. Piker stresses that Rogan did not become a right wing op because they gave him money. He got there organically. It says Piker does worry that the lesson Democrats will take from this election is they need 10 to 15 Pod Save Americas out there. They don't. I'm a notorious Pod Save America hater. I'm not going to say names here, but there used to be a podcast I liked. I know these two comedians that hosted it. Lux will probably know what I'm talking about. These two comedians hosted a podcast. It was on politics. It was a podcast that during 2020 I liked a lot. And one of the hosts of that podcast, and they were like very leftist on this podcast. They split up, and one of those people is still very leftist and a successful comedian. And one went to work for Pod Save America, and now they do the most patronizing post where they just say Dem talking points, but will be like, as a leftist, and it makes me want to throw up in my eyes. I want to throw up and then just splash it into my eyes. Piker's appeared on Pod Save America. He respects the work they do. He argues we need something that goes beyond that truly reflects the values of a lot of people of the base. And it's hosted by a bunch of guys, just a bunch of guys. One of those guys argued that the Democratic Party's media problem is that Republicans have invested tons of money and time into building a right-wing media ecosystem. And then he said that Biden and Walz snubbed their podcast in 2024. End of the article here. While Trump continues to elevate right-leaning independent media through engaging it, Piker says there is no such back-and-forth relationship on the left as Democrats flock to the more insular mainstream media. And here's the issue again. So I was arguing constructively, I'd say, with some folks on the internet via Wisecrack's official channels. And people were getting mad at me because they were like, what are you talking about? The left is huge. The left dominates media. And I was like, what do you mean by the left? And they were like, CNN and MSNBC. And I was like, I don't really think those are left. I think those are centrist things. I think you can say that they are to the left of, the hard right, but to say they're left is kind of silly. I see Zachary said something in the chat. Rogan doesn't draw lines to divide people. He at least gives the appearance of having all types of guests on. Maybe illusory, but it's technically not factionalized. Sandel Farmer says Adam Conover and Ben Shapiro play similar characters. That's really interesting. That is really interesting, and I mean that genuinely. Lori Christian brought up Bruce Springsteen, which is just great. Why not bring up Bruce Springsteen? If you're feeling depressed, there's a Bruce Springsteen documentary about his recent tour on Hulu that I think you should definitely watch. Lonkin Pork, you are correct. Okay, where is this? Danny, I would love to talk about your film potentially. 888, I don't know what we do, but if someone can tell me what to do, then I'll do it. Let me take a sip of water and I'll keep talking. But yeah, some people are getting mad at me saying that the left already has power. So here's the issue, right? Is that like the radical faction of the Republican Party, we'll call it Trumpism, has taken over, and that party has been totally fine with embracing non-traditional media sources. The problem you have on the other side is you have the centrist Democrat Party, and you have a mainstream centrist media ecosystem, and then you have a pretty strong, more left-wing media ecosystem, and none of the politicians want to engage with that. So it's sort of like the two options seem to be that the left-wing media ecosystem is able to build enough power and influence on the culture that it basically like forces more centrist politicians to engage with it, or it gives them enough power where they can sort of like lift up people as potential candidates, options, whatever. Or I guess, like Piker pointed out in the Vanity Fair thing, it could lead to the Democrats producing 10 to 20 more Pod Save America things and being corny as all hell. As all hell. So, let's see. Just gonna do another chat check-in. Yeah, just a quick general station identification. 888 Lux sings Amazing Grace. I love that. This is Wisecrack Live. It's Wednesday, November 13th. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with Michael Luxembourg. Producer Henry is out participating in filmmaking. If you did not watch it yesterday or check out the VOD, please do consider checking out Show Me the Meaning. I'll post a link in the chat in just a second. Show Me the Meaning is our movie podcast and show that lives over on the Wisecrack 2 channel. And someone said we missed out by not calling it Wisecrack twice. I think if we start a third channel, I'll just say it now. I promise if we ever start a third channel, it'll be named Wisecrack
Burns,
thrice.
we hit 888.
So I don't know what that means, guys.
I mean, it's time. It's time for you to make some kind of choice.
Okay, 888. At 888 is when I tell you the story of how I lost my virginity.
Are you gonna do that every time we hit 888? Because that's gonna get pretty fucking.
What if every time I tell Bruno, what
story.
if I? Yeah, or I could lie and I could make it different, or maybe I never did. Maybe I never lost it. I mean, okay, how about this? At 888, I'll tell you. Let me think. Okay. I mean, it's 888, so I'm going to tell you something. Oh, someone said 900. Someone else said unfollowed. That's cool. I'm not going to tell you about losing my virginity, guys. I'm not going to do that.
Do you think you could do a standing 900?
What do you mean?
Jump and spin 2.5 times?
I don't think I could. I think if I had more room, I might be able to. Actually, I think if there was more room, I could. I don't think they give me enough room in here. So I think that's that. I mean, I'll tell you this. I was almost suspended from high school for a prank that involved, how do I want to put this? Projectile defecation. Maybe.
Wait, I have a poop high school story too.
Yeah.
And I'm about shit.
Yeah, maybe this is like a Patreon exclusive where Lux and I do a shit cast. But I'll just say that there's 2 times I almost got suspended or unable to graduate high school. One was because of a defecatory prank, and one was because I missed first period so many times. They told me if I missed it one more time, I would get in trouble. I'll tell you this, guys. If you like Wisecrack, I don't care if you like Wisecrack. If you like Jackass, I would say the member of the crew that I was maybe had the most in common with at a certain point was Dave England. I'm gonna leave you with that.
Hell of a thing to say. Someone pitched in the chat. I gotta see. Curtis B pitched 888 is secret time, and I think.
Ooh, that's kind of fun.
I like that.
Okay, I'll do a secret if everyone else does a secret. Okay, are we all in agreement?
Do you want to count all 888 secrets that come in?
Yeah, we need to have 888 secrets. Let me think of a secret that I could tell you all. Okay, no, that's too real. We know that I like to get too real, but that one is just too real. I mean, here's one. I lied about being vegetarian once because I had a crush on someone my sophomore year of college, and she was like, "Oh, I'm vegetarian," and I just went, "Me too." And then for the next few months, I made myself vegetarian because I was so ashamed of the lie that I wanted to retroactively erase the lie. I couldn't deal with the shame that I had lied to impress someone, so I thought that I could erase the lie. And what I learned is like you can't, guys. Time only moves in one direction. And was it a good experience of learning to be vegetarian? Yeah, it was. Did I ever go on a date with this person? No. Did they express any interest in me? No. Did it go poorly? Yes.
Burns, I hate
Did
to
that
do this, but we're getting a lot of you've already told this story in the chat.
I have? Fuck. Okay, but I bet I didn't tell you this, guys. I bet I didn't tell you this. So that gal didn't like me because she liked this other guy. And then a year later, there was another gal that I liked, and then we dated for a bit, but then she left me for that same guy. This one guy was haunting me. He was just, oh yeah, I got one. I got one, guys. Check this one out. Check this one out. Check this one out.
I love how this is going down.
Guys, I fell in love with this gal in grad school. Truly, truly, probably the most young love I ever had for a person. And this person actually gave me some attention back. We went on some dates. They were an artist with a Scottish accent. It was everything you'd want. But then they told me, that they weren't ready for a relationship. I was going to do a Scottish accent. It went bad. I'll work on do it again. And this, it's a horrible breakup. I'm like listening to sad music, blah, 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 blah. But then it turns out this person I was in love with said they couldn't date me because they weren't ready for a relationship. Immediately started a relationship with a guy who was one of my students in a class I was teaching. So I had to go teach a fucking class and look at this little bastard. And he was younger than her too. This little bastard. And then I just felt so owned. I felt so cucked,
That is a
I
wild
wanted.
amount of being owned. That's off the charts.
Oh, just horrible. Horrible. I don't hope they're both dead. But good for him. I'm honestly impressed by that.
I think this is
So,
a good 888 tradition. And
yeah, so
you can ask guests. If we did it next week, I'll come up with a secret.
yeah. Yeah, if you're in the I think you should share some secrets in the chat, guys. If you have some, you should definitely share them. I know that I have more. I'm just not used to thinking about secrets. But I'm a pretty honest person. He didn't fail the class. I think he might have even like dropped out or something. But that was really a tough one. Oh, I remember his name too. I'm not going to say it. And you know what the
Don't.
most fucked up part of it, guys? You know what the most fucked up part about it was? I loved that guy. Great dude. One of probably my favorite student in the class. I think he was like briefly a touring like noise musician and then went back to school to study philosophy. So like it made sense. You know what I mean? He's a cool guy. I wasn't necessarily mad at him, But then listen to this shit. The young woman in question here was also a bartender at my favorite bar in grad school, and I made the horrible. Well, I didn't feel bad about this. So she leaves me, starts dating this guy who's my student. So then I go on a date at one point with a nice person, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to my favorite bar, and she's working the bar there, but I think I'm good. I can take a young lady to this bar because you A left me and B started dating one of my students, but I guess I couldn't. Because she was mad, and then later someone said to me that was really mean of you. I don't know. Maybe I was just dumb. Was that
It
mean of
sounds
me?
like you went to a grad school in a town of 9 people.
I did. I literally did. And I went to for Show Me the Meaning Heads. Me and Austin went to the same grad school. Um, I went to grad school in like a relatively small city in Scotland. So like the university community was a small part of the city. And then I would say within the university community, there was a smaller community of, let's say, like grad students and like weird artsy people, for lack of a better term. So I think that it did create a sense of that. And it was a time in my life, there was a lot of like weird overlap. Like there was once, guys, I can't believe I'm doing this, but if you're Show Me the Meaning Heads, you have to promise to bring this up to Austin. So Austin Smith, one of the hosts of Show Me the Meaning, we were roommates for a year in grad school. And there's another gal that I liked. And Austin, he knew that I liked this young lady. And we went out to like a warehouse party one night, and I like danced with her. It seemed like it was going well. And like I went home that night, and I think I had like even talked to this person. We were going to go out sometime later. So I go home, I go to bed, wake up the next morning to make coffee, and the young woman leaves Austin's room wearing one of his t-shirts and is just like, "Where is everybody?" And I was just like, "Jesus fucking Christ. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me."
I mean,
But you know,
okay,
the
that's
game, I guess.
that's brutal, but like Austin is like the hunk of the cinch.
He is.
Like
Austin is not,
that's
he's like the hottest
untouchable.
person who's ever done a PhD in European philosophy. This is the problem. You're not supposed to be hot and be in grad school for a subject like that. You can be like oddly handsome or kind of cute. You can't be hot.
And you can't be all Austin. I feel the same way about Austin as I do about. We should probably get back on topic soon, but I feel about Austin the same way I
Cool.
feel about friend of the show Tim Faust,
Mm.
where it's just like, oh great, you're so handsome and you wrote a book and you're so funny and everything's so cool. Congratulations, good job. And I feel the same way about Austin, where it's just like, oh, you surf, that's cool. Oh, you're a mega hunk, that's sick. Nice Sartre book, dude.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, these
So
people.
it's messed up. It's messed up. So speaking of like hunks and cool dudes and stuff like that, I think that it gets back to this question then of like, is it honestly an issue of Riz, right? Is the whole issue we're talking about a matter of that like a lot of, and I think this is kind of true, are a lot of the media figures on the left side of things weird artsy alt guys, and a lot of media figures that are more on the right quote unquote side are the Austins of the world, people with a little more riz, people that played sports growing up, all this sort of thing. And I kind of think that there is a level of truth to that. And here's what I mean by that. I could see how just like a normal guy could find his way in to Theo Von or Joe Rogan, right? All it takes is like a comedian I like was on that. Or even like someone brought this up in the chat earlier, Gabor Mate, like the scientist and like relatively or like doctor and interesting guy. Oh, I like Gabor Mate. He said some cool stuff about trauma or ADHD or psychology or whatever. Oh, he's on Theo Von. I'm gonna listen to this Theo Von thing because this doctor I like is on it. Or if you are a Joe Rogan head, like he occasionally has people on that are like academics or like non-political comedians, like Bill Burr goes on these shows. A lot of people like Bill Burr, a lot of normal guys like Bill Burr. So maybe you have an entryway into that world such that you're like, oh, I liked listening to kind of a political media figure on whatever the show was, so now I'm a part of that universe. But like if you're just like a normal dude, you're probably not gonna stumble into like Chapo Trap House, and you're definitely not going to stumble in to like a hardcore left Twitch stream or something like that. Especially if you're in like an older demographic. I think if you are younger, you could kind of stumble into those sorts of worlds. And I think it's because there's a lot of people in those worlds who have a lot more like normal guy charisma, or at least project. And I know that I keep saying guy, and I think it's because a lot of these articles are talking about, how a lot of these were used to, a lot of these like media places were used to drive men to vote for Trump. We could talk a little more broadly about this in a second. But like, well, Sean Harriman says Theo Von cried for Palestinian children with Gabor Mate. That's wild. But I think that that's more of the issue in my mind. Like, I think if we were going to say what could be done in the digital media ecosystem to create a broader space for progressive ideas to A, have an influence in general, and B, engender conversations with, bigger political figures, I think part of it has to be that there need to be media spaces where the vibe isn't just like we're screaming about politics, but the vibe is sort of we're talking about lots of different stuff. Maybe sometimes we're talking about movies or sports or the weather, or we're goofing off or whatever, but we're creating a space for a more positive, open minded, parasocial community or whatever it might be. And, I don't think that means that those spaces should just be like a home for like fascist. In the same way that, someone might say, like, oh, Joe Rogan talks to JD Vance and Bernie Sanders. I do think at a certain point, if you're operating from like a vaguely progressive principle, it's hard to really be chummy with someone who's relatively anti-egalitarian or whatever. But maybe there's a world where you can do that. But I think that there has to be room to not just talk to other radical left figures. I thought about this when I was watching the Behind the Bastards episode that was on Curtis Yarvin, where the guest was Ed Helms. Behind the Bastards, I think of as a pretty left-leaning, culture and historical analysis podcast. Ed Helms is just like a comedic actor. Seems like a very nice guy and is a good banjo player. I don't know. I think that's cool. Someone said, "You mean like old Wisecrack?" I don't. I don't buy that, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Um,
that wait, hold on. That's a make 'em up. I gotta say, that's make 'em ups to me. Like, I've been directing these videos since the first Trump election. And there was never like a point where the show, like even when we would talk about like conservative or right wing philosophers, it would always be like, and that's not so good.
yeah,
Like I don't know what the thing they're referencing is that old Wisecrack would do, um, that was meaningfully different. Like Alec was the editorial lead,
yeah,
and Alec is about as hard left as a guy could get.
very
Um,
hard left guy.
Even like, well, he and I are like I think pretty much in the same zone, and like that it's hard to get more that way. So I don't know. I think it's I see that you're trolling Imal Reyes, but we hear it. People say this shit all the time. And I don't
Yeah.
understand it.
Well, I mean, and I think one thing that is true to get baited into old Wisecrack, yeah, they're trolling, so it's totally fine. But I do think one reason too people sometimes do the thing with old Wisecrack is like, and two, I really mean this as a compliment. Like when we did get trolled, but now I'm gonna say this because I was thinking about it. A thing that used to happen with Wisecrack when Jared was the only host, a thing that Jared did, which I think was very smart and self-care-ish of him, not a big social media guy. Not besides Wisecrack stuff, Jared was someone who was not putting his life, his thoughts, and his personality on the internet. And I think that because I'm terminally online, it does allow people to like take my stuff and then project it onto our things.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry. I can't wait till
Jared
someone
really
unplugs
did
the
just
internet.
roll up and do the job.
Yeah,
And people
good for him.
are saying about the like that kind of stuff, media theory and stuff coming back. Check out Wisecrack 2. It's coming, baby. We're gonna get to some anime.
It
Uh,
exists.
we're gonna get some anime there sometime. Yeah, Jared's off living his best life in Finland. So, shouts out to him. Should I
Yeah.
switch to the two
Um,
of us screen?
Sure, I'm gonna do a switch, and I'm gonna say a couple things, and then we can kind of get into it from there. But so one thing, guys, a thing that real alphas do. Um, I really mean that, guys. I really, really mean that. You can hit us. And we had a really important question in our email from Ann Porkins, which is, will you be checking emails in today's stream? Thank you for your time. Ann Porkins, yes. Emails will be checked during today's stream. And we've been doing this passively, guys. I got distracted with election stuff, but a reminder, let's just say that the coffee contest is ongoing on a rolling basis. I'm going to pick another winner soon. We've had a couple entries. If you want free Yes Please coffee, make something that shows me how you like your coffee. It could be a short video, an animation, a song, a picture that you draw, a poem that you write, any sort of thing. And you email it to wisecracklive666@gmail.com. I'll pick a couple finalists. I send them over to the gang at Yes Please, and they pick the winner. So consider doing that as well. I'm going to tell you guys a thing that I'm working on in the background. Um, you guys are going to be the first ones to know this. So there's an online like right wing college that's doing audio. Is the audio gone?
Uh, I think I
Uh
fixed it,
oh.
but do you want to test? Do you want to find out?
It says two screen mode mutes
Yeah, I think
audio.
I fixed that. You want to find out?
Okay. Yeah, but I wonder what we missed.
They just missed the part where you're
Guys,
talking about how good coffee is. I switched it back pretty quick.
okay, cool. So just in case, I'll say this again, guys, with the yes please thing, just in case you didn't hear this. Wisecrack Live 666 at gmail.com. Tell me how you like your coffee. And someone's gonna get picked to get free coffee sent to them. And it's expensive coffee, so that's good.
All right.
So there's an online college that has a course on Marxism, and I don't know how this is gonna work video wise, guys, but I'm taking it. I'm registered at a certain conservative university that has a free online course on Marxism. I do not know yet if they are going to let me submit work, but I'm hoping that I can submit some written work and assignments to the Conservative College's online Marx course and get graded by someone. I think that would be really funny.
If we want to
So
convert it to video, we should just do a call because I think I can figure out ways to do that.
wait, for what?
If we want to figure out how to make video out of that, I think we can. I think we can do
Oh,
that.
yeah. But yeah, guys. So it might be our first investigative journalism piece of things like that. And just a couple other reminders before I have some questions for Lux about some various things. It's not PragerU though. Monday we'll be doing a case of the Mondays stream. I'm gonna do it from home, and I'm gonna run that one solo. It'll be very simple. We might just watch some stuff. Next Wednesday, Lux is gonna be back with us again. Henry's out making movie magic, and we're happy for him. That's also why if you're a viewer of the Show Me the Meaning streams, those are getting pushed back the next couple weeks. So there's going to be at 7 p.m. Zone of Interest is what they talked about last night. I don't know if you all have seen Zone of Interest. I think it's a really intense movie, but also a really apt movie for many things going on in the world right now. And if you have not watched it yet, I really do. Alex, I think I saw your thing and it was really good.
All right. Ready to try
Yeah.
ready to test out, see if we can get to both of us now?
Yeah, go to screen and see if the audio works.
All right. I've got my audio. I don't. Burns, are you saying anything?
Yeah, I'm saying
you're
things.
So
Are
loud.
we here?
You're
Are
so
we
loud.
here?
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Okay. Ann Porkins, I will not play Roblox on Monday. Not even for you. And if I won't do it for Ann Porkins, then I won't do it for anyone. So it's basically a thing right there. And just a reminder, in general, it says no mic audio. Burns is loud. No, oh, never mind.
Oh,
okay.
but I broke Discord momentarily. There we go. We're back.
Someone in the chat's name is Roland DeBoer. Roland, are you the same DeBoer? There was like a philosopher with that name at some point.
Guy Debord?
Oh, no, there was
Debord without the D. Yeah.
Yeah, and then DeBoer, and then there's and Roland, there's a Dutch philosopher, Karen DeBoer, who wrote a book on Hegel that I really liked a lot. So there you go.
I just want to say, really quickly now that I'm here, I'm sorry about the audio glitches. Henry's presets are not my presets, and I'm learning them as I'm learning them as we go. They're not bad. They're just not what I'm used to. They're not my stuff. I'm playing with someone else's toys.
Shots fired. Okay, so I'm gonna ask this, and I'm curious, guys, in the chat. I'm gonna pay more attention to the chat now, so I want to know what everyone's thinking. Lux, what are your thoughts on and let's start general and get specific. It's been, at this point for the past week, almost talked to death. This notion of the online media ecosystem facilitating a Trump victory and there being a lack of that for the liberals or the left. And if you're just tuning in, that's what we've been talking about. You can rewind and see the rest later. Do you have general thoughts on that, Lux?
Yeah, okay. I think the biggest thing about it is that people don't understand why Joe Rogan works. And what's going on with Joe Rogan. I think people have no idea.
Tell us. You're his neighbor, so you should know.
Well, the reason Joe Rogan and Theo Von work is that they're utterly non-judgmental, right? I've said this to you before. I don't think we put it in the Joe Rogan video, but this is one of the framing sentences we use for the Joe Rogan video, which is that Joe Rogan is basically a barbarian who lives in a cave and thinks that everyone who walks by is a wizard. He takes everything everyone says super seriously. He's earnestly excited about it. He's engaged. He asks questions. He treats it like a real thing. And Theo Von's the same way. A lot of those guys are the same way. And so what ends up happening is that what the people get excited about, that kind of enthusiasm that opens them to stuff. They're not the guys who are like, go grab your tiki torches and march on Charlottesville, but they have that guy on the show and they don't push back. The problem that the left and the center left even runs into is that, like, culturally speaking, and that you were getting at this, it's hard to let those people on the show and not just like yell at them. Whereas it's a lot easier for Joe Rogan to have Bernie on and be like, that makes sense. And so that's the sort of difference that you get, right? Is that there's no one on the left who's like willing to engage with that stuff. So like people like who like are willing to express that kind of excitement. So people like Conover, Chapel Trap House Gang, Hassan, their whole thing is that like their whole thing is like when people like disagree with them, they own them with critical thinking and knowledge and skill, which is impressive and cool and exciting. But it's not the same thing. It doesn't create this like open, like, we're just learning about some stuff, we're just shooting the shit, we're just talking about things.
Yeah. Well, and there's a difference too in the people that you're outlining as well. Like, I think that I feel like it's not nothing that some of the, and this is all in finger quotes because like I said, I don't think that Rogan and Theo Von are like overtly right wing guys, but a lot of these, Tim Dillon is pretty overtly right though. But some of these, online figures, they're comedians, and I do think that successful comedians, regardless of their ideology, have to learn to be relatable or entertaining to relatively broad audiences, because you're not going to be very successful as a comedian, at least early on, if you're only doing like the one thing. And I think that like there's a skillfulness. I mean, again, there's a reason why, and this is going to sound kind of corny, there's a reason why late night hosts are usually comedians, because comedians are sometimes good at rolling with it and knowing how to interact with a variety of people in a way that can sometimes even like goad them or let them talk without having to yell at them or criticize them. And I think that, what are the examples we have of like comedians on the quote unquote left? The return of Jon Stewart's been pretty good. I've really enjoyed that. I thought when Wyatt Cenac had a show on HBO that was like a sort of political thing was really good. I think regardless of, I know there's some issues with maybe like him treating his staff bad, Hassan Minaj did a pretty good job of that. John Oliver doesn't like interview people, but I think John Oliver does a solid job. But I think there is something about how like comedians are maybe better at this than people who are like just online dudes.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, you saw, what's his name? One of the podcasts, Todd Save America Johns, went on Survivor and got voted off like instantly. Like, they're not good at connecting with people. But like,
those guys suck.
That's the thing, though, right? Is that like it's about this connection stuff, and people in the chat are pointing out a lot of valid stuff, right? That like a lot of it's because they're kind of I think the Joe Rogan magic honestly has a lot to do with Joe Rogan having like really bad CTE. Like, he just doesn't remember things and gets excited about stuff and is dumb in like a really unique and special way. But it works, right? That's the thing, is it does actually work. And Theo Von is like kind of a dumb guy, but the same kind of enthusiasm. And so it's really, and that's a hard thing to replicate on the left, because like we have these intellectual demands, we have these moral positions that I don't think are necessarily bad. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, I would never do a podcast with a Nazi. I think that's good, probably.
Yeah.
But it does create a condition where you can't get the authentic sort of, we'll talk to anyone about anything. And people are right pointing out that that sort of the treating everything equally creates a universe of like total non-truth and like totally arbitrarily evaluated truth claims. Which is not good.
So I'm just going to tease it, which is what Friday's video about Jubilee videos kind of gets into.
Yeah. And that's not a good,
hey, Julia.
That's not a good intellectual environment in many ways. But it still is a thing that gets people hooked on his shit. And so that works, right? And that's the thing they have to replicate. I think the actual answer is to just like have leftist guys go on Vaughn and Rogan. Like, I don't think you need to build a new thing. I think you need to engage with that and meet people where they're at. Like, this is, not to be all like organizer about everything, but the first big rule of organizing is you meet people where they're at. Like, you go to them. You're not going to stuff like right now, DSA is getting a bunch of signups because of the Trump election, but in general, DSA doesn't get a ton of signups because we have like fun board game nights at the local co-op bar. They get signups because they go to events, they meet people at things, they talk to people, they get people signed up. You have to meet folks where they exist. And so instead of being like, we need to build our own special house for people to come and hang out at on the leftist Joe Rogan, just fucking go to Joe Rogan and shit. Like, that's just the answer. To me, that just seems like the obvious sort of choice, right? He's obviously sympathetic to this stuff. He endorsed Bernie. He voted for Bernie in 2020. Sean Harriman was banging this drum earlier, and I think he's right that like a big part of it is that like the way that Democrats position policy and create policy positions don't translate to those sorts of folks, like we talked about last week. This is the thing I yelled about 1 week ago, was this exact dynamic that like the framework is just like, you know, I'm just like, sorry, their framework is very like means tested, very specific, very hard to process, and legalese and technocratic, and it's not just do Medicare for all, hooray, right? But if you go and like present these policies in a really clear way, they work and people are persuaded by them. Like Andy Bashir had that article that just came out where he was like, Trump won really Kentucky by 30 points. I'm the governor. I think trans people should have rights. How did this happen? Let me explain. And it's like, it's all a lesson. I think it's a surreal missing of the point that's happening from Democrats, which is sort of their brand. So I'm not shocked to see it per se, but it is ultimately the thing. Also, shouts out to JFix who's joining their local DSA. Let's go, baby.
No, but I feel like I get what you're saying there. And I think, you know, there's a reason why, and this is annoying to talk about, and I'm talking about him too much these days, but there's a reason why Bernie going on Rogan went well, and that Bernie going on Theo Vaughn this past year went well. Because, and you know, Bernie went on Jesus and Mero when they still had a show, and it was really fun. But he is good at articulating positions and ideas in a way that speaks kind of directly to the visceral, material, and emotional needs of most people. He speaks about politics and policies in a way that doesn't require you to understand any wonky policy stuff or have an elevated understanding of how, you know, congressional oversight committees work or something like that. I think that, you know, there's instances where we've seen Tim Walz be pretty good at this. I know there's people like, you know, Ilhan Omar and AOC that have been on people's streams before talking about stuff like this. And I think like to second something Lux, you know, you said, you do gotta like meet people where they're at. And if the rule is like, we can't go on this show because that person talks to people we don't agree with, I don't know how much that helps you. And I don't know how much that breaks stuff outside of an echo chamber. And I think then, you know, an issue, of course, becomes a thing that we can't control. And the thing that none of us can control is where are the political leaders on the left side that are able to be humans and speak to people like humans. You know, Lux just brought up Andy Bashir, the governor of Kentucky. You know, Bernie's 1 billion years old. Walz might still have I mean, he's still the governor and he might be okay. I think that like Harris's career is over, but I think Walz might still have a career. There's other people in play, but if you look at a lot of the commentary coming from like inside the halls of power, inside the democratic system, there's a lot of blaming diversity and blaming woke young kids and all this sort of shit. The other thing I would just say really quickly is there's a lightly philosophical thing going on here, which again is, I think there's always things to be learned from a vaguely Socratic model. And the vaguely Socratic model is that if we use, you know, both the actual Socratic dialogues or Plato, Socrates, and the Republic as a model here, and stick with me, guys, I promise I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole for too long. There's a sense in which the person who's leading the conversation intentionally like withholds a sense of certainty and remains open to letting other people express their ideas. Because another thing I guess I would say is like, you have to sometimes interact with people who don't think like you to show people that the way you think makes more sense, you know? I think there's times, well, again, when I think back to like, the early books of Plato's Republic, where people say stuff to Socrates that seems like it makes sense, where they're just like, oh, justice isn't real because people just want what's best for them. And here's an example that shows you the proof of that. Things that sound common sense. And then Socrates is able to kind of take the discussion in a way that shows that maybe it's not so common sense and there's other stuff to think about there. But Chris does point out in the chat, which is valid. I don't know, man. They killed Socrates,
Also,
which is true.
I just want to respond. King Madness is like the fact that people try to put Joe Rogan towards the right. Are you watching the stream, my guy? Like, the last 5 minutes was me yelling about how he's not really that much on the right. Like, you gotta come with it a little better than this, my friend. Like, because that's the whole point. That's the whole idea, right? That's the whole idea behind the stuff I'm getting at, is that Rogan probably at this point is a little bit more right-leaning now. Theo Von, who knows? But they also aren't the right in the way people talk about, right? They have the right on the show, for sure. But like, that's not the thing people are worried about. It's not like Joe Rogan indoctrinating people with information. Or that is what they're worried about, but they're wrong, right? Joe Rogan doesn't indoctrinate people with information. He gives all these information a place to go, and then people judge and react to it accordingly. It's like you said, some of the Socratic dialogues involve people saying shit that makes a lot of sense. Like in the Republic, people are like, isn't art kind of cool? And then Plato's like, shut the fuck up. Like, that's, or Socrates rather. But like, that's the whole thing, is that space exists and it's given to those folks, and then people latch onto the stuff. But if you aren't inserting leftist dialogue into that ecosystem, of course it skews right in terms of like what people go and check out, right? If a lot of people watch Joe Rogan, but the only things that happen on Joe Rogan are like JD Vance, Elon Musk, and a bunch of guys who think the pyramids were computers, that's what the people who watch Rogan are going to look up. If you get not those guys on that show, and it's possible to get not those guys on that show, he's offered, right? Then you get that voice in that space. And alternatively, if they suddenly close it off to more left-leaning voices, that's a terrible look for the brand that is Joe Rogan, right? If you're so fucking worried, like, make him put his money where his mouth is. And like, they just don't do it because of the reputations or whatever. But that's the whole thing. They don't take swings, and the swings are how you win. I mean, people say he wants to skew right, but he endorsed Bernie in 2020, right? Like, obviously things have changed in the past 4 years, for sure. And I think Rogan has drifted further to the right, but I don't think it's a lost cause, spatially speaking. And I think that it's sort of like, this is I forget who said it, but like, Democrats spend most of their time making plans for what's going to happen after they lose. Like, instead, like, try winning, maybe, as like a approach.
Yeah. But and Django Kill, I think you're right. It's insane that Lux doesn't think pyramids are computers, and he's wrong on that take, and we can just accept that. But I think the way in which Lux just made this point that the Democrats make plans to lose, and there's something to be said too that like some of these post-mortem conversations have the structure of just like, how can the left simply copy what we perceive as being the thing that won the right? And I think that, the emphasis on the medium in which messages were communicated, I think in some cases too, is missing the point of like what was said. Because it's not like, oh, all Kamala Harris needed to do was go on Theo Von and she would have won, right? I think it's like, no, these people need to exist in those spaces, but also have a message that's relatable for people in those spaces and can talk about stuff. So I'm curious if in the chat too, I'm curious like what media, and I know what some of you watch, guys, because we can look at YouTube analytics. I know what you freaks are watching. I'll never tell, but you should be ashamed of yourselves. I'm kidding. You watch really good stuff. But I'm always curious if there's spaces out there that people think are in that wheelhouse, because I'm sure there's tons of smaller outlets and podcasts and shows where people are doing a version of what we're talking about and maybe just, not as well known or whatever. Let's see. Okay, I'm checking the Wisecrack live email. I see some coffee contest submissions, so I very much appreciate that. As always, it's wisecracklive666 at gmail.com. Um, for all of our basketball heads out there, I do want to note that they put out today that Greg Popovich suffered a stroke
Yeah.
and is making a full recovery. Okay, Popovich, cool guy. So I want him to be okay. Um, I want to quickly
Dude, we
shout
should
out
try
because
to
it
get
really
you on Joe Rogan. Someone in the chat said it, but that's true.
listen. I know someone. This is a thing earlier today. Someone in the past week, and this is like very nice when you guys do this. So I'm going to say a thing, but let me preface it with, it is nice that you all have done this. But someone today on Twitter was like, "Oh, you should go on Hassan or go on this thing or whatever." Guys, if I'll go on stuff if I'm invited, but you can't go to a party you're not invited to, you know? So that is what it is right there. So we'll see. But if people invite me to do stuff, I'll do stuff.
We can email Joe Rogan
Um,
though. Griffin knows him. Griffin went to his house.
oh well, there you go. Griffin, the major Joe Rogan head.
I tried to go with Griffin to his house, but they would not let me. They had strict rules.
You are not someone that'll ever get in Joe Rogan's house. I'm very confident.
I bought a special photograph app to try and measure him because I thought I was going to meet him in person at the Breaking Point show with Griffin, and I wanted to figure out how
Yeah.
tall he is, but he never showed.
There you go. There you go. Also, someone said you should quit Twitter. You should have a long time ago. I'm curious people think about that. It's hard, man. It's hard to. What's up, King's Port Call? It's very hard, the idea of quitting Twitter, because for some of us, like I've been on that cursed place for 15 years or something, and I have you know, formed friendships via Twitter. I've, had flirtations and dalliances via that website. It's just been a place I've gone to, so it's so hard to kind of give that up. I'm trying to like not soft launch, but soft leave. But Blue Sky not really popping. Threads not really popping yet, guys. So
I will say,
we just gotta come from
to
there.
Blue Sky's credit, the following lists feature is very good.
Yeah, it looks good.
I was a firm I don't like Blue Sky guy, and I still kind of am. I still like Twitter better, but the fact that I was able to follow a list of everyone who posts bird pictures, and then also a list of everyone who posts pictures of fish, and then everyone who posts pictures of mushrooms, is sick.
Yeah. Mike Kelly says, "Why is it so hard to quit Twitter? I've never used, but it sounds like a drug, and so to so many, all it does is hurt." Yeah, I mean, I will say that when I got banned from Twitter for like 3 months or something like that, which worked out really well because it was concurrent with the birth of my daughter, it felt really bad at first. And I did make like an alt account, which I mean, no one followed because I still had to like be able to see it sometimes. But like, you know, it just wasn't the same, and I felt like something was missing. But eventually, there was a freedom there. Actually, I'm gonna pull this up. It's in that doc. You don't have to pull this up, Lux, but you can. If you're in the two-shot thing, don't worry about it. But this is an interesting thing. So a lot of people have left Twitter in the past week or so. And I'll just say it. People get mad at me sometimes I say this. Elon Musk has absolutely ruined it. The guy has no idea what he's doing.
Which
But
the Guardian
the
one?
Yeah, this is a big deal, guys. The Guardian, one of the largest news sources in the world, is no longer posting on X. And this is their official statement. They said, "We wanted to let readers know we'll no longer post on any official Guardian editorial accounts on the social media site X, formerly Twitter. We think that the benefits of being on X are now outweighed by the negatives, and that resources could be better used promoting our journalism elsewhere. This is something we have been considering for a while, given the often disturbing content promoted or found on the platform, including far-right conspiracy theories and racism." And it's crazy. Like, there's a thing going viral today on X that's a clip from the Fresh and Fit podcast, Bad Guys, that's just aggressively anti-Semitic. And it's insane that shit like that just gets to exist on this platform. And the examples of transphobia, anti-Semitism, racism, you fucking name it, are rampant on that platform. It's really nuts, and a lot of the misinformation is horrific as well. So I kind of get this. It says the U.S. presidential election campaign served only to underline what we've considered for a long time, that X is a toxic media platform, that its owner Elon Musk has been able to use its influence to shape political discourse. Yeah, I mean, for all this talk too of like podcast and shit like that, worth noting that Elon Musk, who owns X, took over the account at America and was posting like aggressively right-wing propaganda and platforming it on his fucking website. And clearly they were boosting all the pro-Trump stuff. It says X users will still be able to share articles in the nature of live news. Reporting means we'll still occasionally embed content from X within our article pages. Our reporters will be able to carry out using the site for their stuff. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's interesting that like a large, national, no, sorry, international media organization has finally just said like, fuck it, fuck it, we're not even going on there anymore. Um, and I think this also taps into the fact, and again, we don't do politics here. No one that works for Wisecrack has ever voted, but
Burns, where'd you go? What happened to Burns? Burns, you froze. Hey, chat, can you guys still hear me? Am I still audible? Okay, cool. So I'm still here. I don't know exactly what happened to Burns. I just texted him. I'm not sure how to fix it. But yeah, no. Oh, you don't want to hear everything I've been holding back, Yakko. I can go. I can go nuts. I got all sorts of problems. But let's. Oh wait. Oh, is he coming back? There he is. There's Burns.
The office internet went out, guys. This happened another time kind of recently. I don't need these headphones now. We can kind of just wrap up here. I'm not gonna be able to see the chat, but at least I came back to say goodbye.
Next time.
Wait, are you?
Next time Burns explodes.
Baby on screen.
Oh yeah, always. Next time Burns explodes, I'll go buck wild.
Yeah, I came back. So, real quick, guys, because our office internet went down, because this is a very professional company here, come back and hang out on Monday. We're gonna have a case of the Mondays over there. Lux, do you have anything else going on that's not Wisecrack related? I know you stream and do stuff.
Sure,
like,
why not? What's happening? Today soon? Tomorrow at twitch.tv/pixelgoblins, we'll be streaming the last hurrah of our run as the South Arkansas State Slime Hogs in NCAA 25, featuring beloved improviser Roy Laserwitz.
Wow.
There's going to be another Fight Opera show on YouTube soon. I just need to upload. I need to figure out if Henry's going to edit the video or if I should upload the raw from the stream, which will be there. If you don't follow Fight Opera, go check us out on Twitter or on Twitch or on Instagram. It's a wrestling show that Henry and I make all the videos for and produce the show. And if you like me and Henry, you should support our show. It's very cool. It's very fun. What other cool things are there? I think that's really all I got going on right this second. There's going to be a new Keep It Together short film, but it's not going to be for a while, so I'll plug it when it comes out.
Hell yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to, I'm in my exercise of teaching myself how to be a functional streamer. I'm doing some occasional very lo-fi streams over on my own channel. I might do one Friday if I finish work in time. That'll be when I do those guys. And if I do that, the gloves are coming off. It's not nice Wisecrack Michael. It's civilian Michael, who's a ruffian and a hooligan. But I feel like post-election, I never want to go like too like political analysis on this channel because it's not like technically what we do. So I wanted to do a little bit more of that on my own in a way that doesn't, impede on my colleagues so they don't have to be liable for my wild.
I don't follow those rules. Oh, we have forgot to plug one important thing, Burns. Next week on Wednesday in the evening, I don't remember what time. I think it's like 3 p.m. Central, so like afternoon. Wisecrack is co-producing a stream with Verso Books.
Yes, we will hype this up on all our channels this week, guys. But yes,
Yeah, but
Lux is working with Verse.
I'm producing and directing a stream with Marjam Deed, who wrote a great book called Everything to Play For, and Josh Sawyer, who made Fallout New Vegas and Pentiment. And they're going to play Wolfenstein and kill some Nazis and talk about philosophy and video games and all sorts of cool stuff. So please check it out. I'll be behind the scenes, and hopefully it'll break as little or less than this one did.
Yes. And reminder, guys, if you like Verso books, we have a Wisecrack reading list, and you get 50% off if you use code Wisecrack over at Verso. So fuck with those books. Okay, guys. Thanks to Lux for filling in for Henry today. Lux will be with us next week. Have a great one. Love you guys and appreciate you all. Certainty is the enemy of truth, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, friends. All right.
Dog.